thoughts on the headline and a lot of people's reactions and things like that. And I listened back to the video and it felt kind of ranty. And I was like, this isn't really great. I'm gonna do something different, right? And I tried again and it wasn't great. And I tried again and it wasn't great. And I was like, you know what? I'll wait and talk about this on stream, right? Because realistically speaking, I feel like this is a better topic for stream overall. All right, so just kind of rip the band-aid off on this one. Holy shit, guys. What is going on with the community right now? What is wrong with people? Like, legitimately, what is up? I don't get this. I don't understand it at all. Why does everyone feel like negativity or being negative or giving any form of criticism, you have to be a complete and total piece of shit? This video is probably not going to be monetized, by the way. I'm going to just leave it as is, which is going to suck for my channel. I'm not going to monetize it because it's going to get demonetized really quickly. What is going on with people? Just because you dislike something, you don't have to be an asshole. Like, it's insane to me how crazy people believe that just being like, oh, I don't like this, and because you like it, I have to be a piece of shit about this. Holy crap. First off, as a creator, we see things consistently that are good and bad for the game. Outside of what we agree with, right? Like, as outside of what we want specifically for the game, we see things that are good and we see things that are bad as creators. Doesn't mean that we have to like all of them. Doesn't mean we have to dislike all of them. I personally don't like covering stuff that I'm not a big fan of. If I don't enjoy the content or I enjoy something, I'll talk about it, say like, hey, look, here's my thoughts very briefly on it, and then I just move on from the topic itself. I have disliked a lot of things about the game itself. I've disliked Bouncer. I've disliked a lot of RNG portions of the game and things like that, but I've understood why certain things have existed. I've understood why I have criticized why things exist in the first place and why they shouldn't exist, right? But somewhere down the line, and it's been a lot this week specifically, the community has actively believed that if you're not pissed off about everything they've shown off, then you're part of the problem. Huh? Where does this come from? You can give feedback and you can criticize something without being a shithead. You can say something is bad without saying someone is bad for thinking of it. I know that's a foreign concept for some people, but you can dislike stuff without being a complete and total asshole. And I don't understand how that's not a thing for people these days. How if you're not actively upset and screaming at the dev team because you dislike something about the game, then you're part of the problem. They like to throw around these buzzwords like toxic positivity, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, some people don't believe toxic positivity exists. I'm not one of those people personally. I think there is a level of toxic positivity sometimes for certain things, but people like to throw out the buzzword toxic positivity every single time that you are not upset about something that they're upset about. That's not how that works. People just throw buzzwords out there over and over and over again. Don't actually fucking know what they mean. You want to talk about toxic positivity? Toxic positivity is liking everything, no matter how bad something is, to the point of taking your opinion, your positive opinion, and then telling someone they're wrong for having a negative one. People can be passionate about something. That's totally fine. But you can also not be a shithead about sharing your opinion. And you're not going to blame criticism, because people like to blame criticism. Oh, I'm just a critic of things that I like. No, you're just an asshole. You can be a critic of something. You can talk about something that you like and not be a piece of shit. And people want to hide behind this idea that they're just trying to make the world a better place, when realistically speaking, all they've done is done irreparable damage to the entire freaking community. There have been people that legitimately get bullied for not being upset about things that currently are going on in this game, which blows my goddamn mind. How is that even a possibility? Like, what? How can you actively bully someone because they don't dislike what you dislike? Yeah, maybe they aren't that upset about certain things. Maybe they have a different outlook on life. Hell, maybe they have a different situation than you. Maybe they have different values than you. Holy shit, it's crazy to think that people are different in the world. Are you serious? What? It absolutely blows my mind. So, first off, the whole positive negative BS that's gone on recently, as far as the community is concerned. Yes, this month sucks. As far as hype moments, it's a dull month. Absolutely. 100% agree. 100% with you. But that's the extent of it. We can say that, hey man, this month isn't super interesting. This month is dull. This month is uninspiring. And if someone doesn't agree with you, like, oh, cool, this month is not that great, I'm going to go play something else. That doesn't mean that you freak out on that individual and say they're part of the problem. No, they can give something without actively being an awful person. I don't understand how that's not like how that is the norm nowadays. Like, it is so much more recently, and I mean it's pronounced a lot more because of our community, but it's so much more recently than it has been in a very long time. And guys, I have literally been a part of the PSO2 community longer than most people have even played the game. I have been covering PSO2 content since episode 4 of the Japan release of Phantasy Star. Trust me, I have been there. I was there for people jumping into every station plus saying buff fighter. I was there for the 2 weeks that people said buff or buff braver. I was there for the moments where the lead dev of base PSO2 quite literally said they wanted to equate PSO2 to a pachinko game. I've seen the ups and downs. I've been a part of them personally. I've played during those eras. I've quit the game and I've come back. I've seen it. And recently, the level of toxicity I've seen from the own community themselves, outside of a month of a boring event, absolutely blows my mind. Skulls recently made a video talking about like people doing more damage with negativity than the actual community, the actual game itself. And people have taken their time to comment on the video and offer the support, but other people have taken their specific time out of their day to DM her, to comment about toxic positivity, about how people are causing more problems for the game that they're helping. I promise you, nothing is going to be more damaging to a game overall to anyone looking at it than the actual player base. Do you know how many games people are like, I don't want to play that game because I've heard the player base is like awful or the player base sucks? Do you know how many games people jump into to play because they have physically heard the player base is awesome and welcoming and warming? It matters. It is a huge thing. And as creators, a lot of us look at this. League of Legends on the negative side and Final Fantasy 14 on the positive side. And then you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, well, that must get a bunch of people to play, right? That means it's a perfect game. No game is perfect. 14 right now has the player base talking about how the most recent expansion is the worst one they've ever had. And they're dealing with a completely different like list of issues that actually go completely against what everyone talks about all the time. So no MMO is perfect. Just because we're not ranting and raving about every single thing that we hate does not mean that people are not offering criticisms. I'm not out here telling you guys the headline was an 8 out of 10 and you just don't understand how good some of these things are. There are a lot of things that happen in PSO2 that are designed a very specific way that I personally am used to, that I've told people over and over again, I get why you're upset, but this sort of thing doesn't really bother me that much. It doesn't make me part of the problem. I don't have to actively absolutely hate something to make it change. I can say it's bad and move on. My problem is that a lot of the community hasn't been able to do that. And they think screaming about it and screaming at everyone else who doesn't scream about it is the way to fix it. And guys, it's not. It just causes discourse. It causes irritation for everyone involved. So I implore you, if you actively feel like screaming at someone is doing anything other than getting them to ignore you faster, you really should think about how you actually offer feedback for anything in this world. Anything at all. The phrase Karen and Kevin exist for a reason. The word Karen and Kevin, or names Karen and Kevin, exist for a fucking reason. They exist for a reason. So when people are being absolutely ridiculous and no one wants to listen to that at all, let's come together to actually give criticisms to the game and help it get better. But let's show that we can do that without being shitty. Anonymity entitlement is a hell of a combination. It absolutely is. It's crazy how people feel like they can just say whatever they want. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be pissed off at me for making this or even releasing this video. And I absolutely plan to. I'm going to. This is going up on the channel. I don't really care. It'll be unmonetized because it'll get demonetized for everything I've said in it so far. But like, it's crazy to me to see people acting this way. This doesn't fix anything. Answer the surveys. It's obvious they pay attention to them. Say something is bad. Don't say a person is terrible for thinking of it. It's not a difficult thing. So, in lieu of everything I just said, I'm going to go ahead and show you all how I offer criticism for something I don't like. Even though it's not something that I personally like to do, is to dwell on something I don't like, I'm going to talk about the headline for all of you guys. I'm going to talk about all the good. I'm going to talk about all the bad. And I'm going to talk about everything in between. You know why? Because I can. We can have opinions about stuff. So let's do it. Let's have that conversation together, right? Hold on a sec, because I actually have, because I've tried this a few times, I have a little sticky note that has all the good and bad parts that I enjoyed and hated the game about the headline. It's crazy, right? So let's go over. So first things first, we're going to talk about the good stuff, because there were good things in the headline. Contrary to popular belief, people believing this is the worst headline that we've ever had, which I don't get that either. We have definitely had worse headlines. We have had the boring event, nothing new headline with 0 extra features, by the way. So that's, to me, the headline was just a filler month. But I digress. We're past that at this point. So the good stuff. They talk about the add-on skills. There's level 4 and level 5 for add-on skills. Level 4 costing us more cubes. Level 5 costing us some new resource. Good, because it removes some of the RNG of getting to level 20 on some of your add-on skills. Some would say bad because it's going to be more expensive. We have to wait and see how the system actually works out. The new resource, how expensive it is or how difficult it's going to be to get a hold of it, we don't know just yet. But overall, it means people can get to that level 20 a bit easier. The second one is one that's a bit divisive for some people, which this is one of those moments where you can choose to disagree with me. That's totally fine. I'm not saying I'm right over someone else, but I'm saying this has been done and it's not worked. So a question was asked about like PA bloat, right? Like, or not PA bloat, but asked about, are we going to get new PAs? Should we see new PAs in the game moving forward? And they mentioned that they don't have plans to release any more PAs into the game. They specifically said that they have a system that's going to be put in place that will modify the use of PAs. And the takes I've seen from this have been, oh, they can't be bothered to design a new PA. Lazy devs just want to reuse the same PAs. Let me actually bring up an example of something here really quick. So for those who've played Phantasy Star games for a long time, like myself, you have, let's see, Photon Arts, it is a phone. You probably have experienced something that most of us like to call PA bloat. And PA bloat is when new PAs consistently get released, and in some cases totally dwarf the need for old PAs. Sorry, I'm covering you guys up, right? So this is a list of PSO2 PAs. As you can see, for Sword alone, we have upwards of 13 PAs. And you're probably thinking, oh, that's super cool. You have so many PAs to use. Wrong. By the time this was finished, the useful PAs you had were Sackbite Type 0, Blaze Parry, Guilty Break for Gap Close, Blade Bash for setup for Blaze Parry. And realistically speaking, that's all you needed. If you're someone who really played a lot of Sword, you could use Nova Strike for AoE. Everything else was so incredibly situational or positionally based, you could get away about never touching it at all. All of this was just extra fluff. I mean, hell, this Sonic Arrow was quite literally pushed into a ring that if you perfect blocked, you would Sonic Arrow afterwards. That's how useless the PA was. You didn't use it for anything else. And the list continues. Most classes had so many more PA. Dude, Launcher used maybe like 2. 90% of the time you used Rocket Rodeo or you used Divine Launcher. Unless you were like a Launcher main, you didn't touch anything else. Fighter, we don't talk about. Dagger Fighter was pretty terrible. Fighter in general used a little bit more because it had a combo system, but that's about it. And that's where PAs were used earlier on. There was a bit of a combo system that you guys could use. But by the time it got to the end, you use like 2 or 3 PAs, maybe 4 maximum. And that's why when we got classes like Etoile, we got classes like Phantom, we got classes like Hero and Luster, the number of PAs most of them had were 4. Most weapons had 4 PAs. And the reason for that was because that was the sweet spot of PAs that most classes actually used, that were useful without needing to act any extra levels of fluff to it. And what blows my mind and what's crazy to me is people actively are thinking, oh, well, that means they're not going to design any other PAs. Guys, the system they're going to put in place, because they've consistently done this, is likely going to be very similar to systems we've seen before. We've had a system in the game previously that adapted and changed the use of PAs. It was the Type 0 crafting system. Now, crafting was much more in depth back in base PSO2 that had a lot more uses that could be fairly expensive overall, but the Type 0 crafting was fairly easy to understand. Essentially, it took a PA and then it changed the use of that PA. You would take certain PAs, like say, for example, you had Bouncer. One of their primary PAs they used was Kestrel Type 0. For building, it was a builder for their gauge. It became a spender instead. You had techs like Safoe that became travel techs. You had techs like Ilzonde that took all of its I'm pretty sure, I believe it was Ilzonde that took away all of its actual damage and purely became a PA that you used for travel. It allowed you to move from place to place. It was almost like a teleport at that point. It was basically like super fast lightning travel. But what it does is it takes PAs and it adapts how they're changed and used. So likely we're going to see a system similar to, if not almost exactly the same. Ilzonde got a massive damage buff when crafted. Am I thinking of a different tech? And I'm not just talking about craft, I'm talking about Type 0 crafted specifically. Was it Ilzonde that was used? It was Safoe and then a form of Zonde that was used for travel. Not one of the ones that was crafted for damage. It was one of the ones that was swapped for travel. Yeah, I'm almost positive it was Ilzonde Type 0 that was used for mobility. But I digress. That's kind of besides the point. Essentially, PAs were changed dramatically on their use cases. Now, the way they were used was changed dramatically. The animations were changed a bit, not a ton, but they were changed a bit. And what this does is it lets you continue to use useful PAs, ones that we liked, without invalidating them, without needing to make a new PA and then you just move over. And I'm gonna be real with you guys, this has been an issue since before PSO2. Back in PSU, a game I absolutely loved, PA bloat was a very common thing. You quite literally would just replace PAs. If you knew what you were doing, you could quite literally ignore specific PAs and just, they went about the wayside. You didn't need them. You would just jump to the next thing and you would never use it again. It was just a wasted spot. So yes, when they say no new PAs coming into the game, that doesn't bother me because they're talking about doing something I think is much more inventive, much more innovative, and much more useful. They'll add more skills into the game as well. Active or passive, that's totally fine. Okay, I had a lot to say about skills. Apologies. Moving on, survey results. So this is what I talk about when I'm saying, hey, look, provide feedback, say something in the survey. They're obviously reading them, because the cool thing about when they showed off the survey stuff was not only did they show off the survey stuff, they showed off actionable plans to add in things that people were asking for from the surveys. It was creative space related, of course, but everything that was at the top of the list for those surveys, they were like, we're planning on adding this in. We're planning on adding this in. We're planning on working this in. We've already added something in to do this. Like, what? It's such a good thing. So again, fantastic. Now, the bad list, it's longer. Of course it's longer. It was a pretty weak headline. Totally fine. Let's talk about it. This first one, the SG support scratch. Ugh. Just let me take a minute to drink this. Hold on. There's just some water, by the way. Okay. SG support scratch. I understand people not liking the support scratch. I 110% get that people don't like the support scratch because it is augmentation capsules that are usually used towards BIS, and they I feel like because it's not coming from something that's in game, it's unfair. It's RNG. I totally get that. Why are we attacking the one scratch that is that is available to everyone? If this take existed on the AC support scratch, which has items that you cannot get in game, you can only get from the scratch or someone else getting them and then selling them to you. So you either have to pay money or have to pay Meseta. No other options, can't farm. Instead, we attack the scratch that everyone has access to pulling on, that they give us currency for every single day, and there are multiple ways of gathering currency for. I don't understand how this take exists on the SG scratch of all things, how we believe that this is causing the game to become pay to win, but the AC scratch we're okay with. Maybe people dislike the AC scratch. Sure, that's totally fine. But how is this the line that we stand on? The one that is acceptable to everyone. Everyone has it. And we don't even know what's in it. We have no idea what's in the scratch. We have literally zero clue. We know of 2 items. We know of one of the capsules that has an S variant. So we're expecting the best in slot augments to be in the scratch at an S variant. And we know there is a Fixa increase. Those are the 2 things that we know of in there. There could be tons of junk in there. There could be a lot of really good stuff in there. And it could be totally worth your SG investment. It could be that, hey, look, a free currency that everyone has access to that you guys can put in to help subsidize all of your gearing. It has a scratch that's worth your time. What a crazy concept. But we don't know. We have no idea. And people's legitimately like freak out over this SG scratch absolutely blows my mind. Yes, there are a lot of ways in game to spend your SG. However, I have actively been spending my SG every single day at a bare minimum of 30 SG a day and still maintain over 1500 SG. If you are actively using your SG to scratch on the SG scratch, you're gonna run out of SG. That is just a reality you need to live with. However, if you're just doing all of the passive things in game that allow you to get SG, and we made a video talking about this, by the way, all the things in game that allow you to get SG, which by the way, for that video, I totally missed a segment I meant to put in there as well, which was the liking lookbooks thing. Thank you, Nova, for commenting on it. I went ahead and hearted it, so I went to the top of the video or top of the comments list. But there is so much SG you can get into the game without trying to go out of your way. It blows my mind. Yes, I am all for you guys if the SG scratch comes back and it has those capsules it had back in base game, like Mark Courage and all that stuff that you could only get from the SG scratch, and they're part of the best in slot setup. I am 110% with you guys if you want to boycott that scratch and you're like, you know what, this scratch sucks, I hate it. If you feel like that's what's causing the game to be pay to win. But I'm gonna be real with you guys, PSO2 is a pay to win game. I probably lost some of you when I said that, but that's the truth of the situation itself. You can quite literally take your credit card, you can swipe it, you can put money into the game, you can then get Meseta out of the game by putting money into it, because you can take the items that you swiped on and sell them on the market, and then take that money to buy some of the best gear in the game itself. That is the reality of what pay to win is. People like to argue this of like pay to convenience, and people like to argue with this idea of like pay for this, that, and the other. No, the reality is the game is pay to win. What people usually argue over is their barometer of what is acceptable versus what is not acceptable. And the reality is PSO2 isn't egregious with this process. There's never been a time where you absolutely need to invest your money to get the best gear in the game. You're never hard locked from anything. You can absolutely just play the game and get everything you need. Yes, someone who swipes is going to get there a little bit faster than you. That is 100% the absolute situation itself. However, it has never been to the point that people who are actively swiping are just actively crushing everyone who's not. That's not the case. That's just that is just the reality of the situation itself. That is the entire thing, front to back. There's no other argument that needs to happen in the situation itself. That is the reality. If you're okay with it, you're okay with it. If you're not, you're not. Move on to the next game itself. It's a free to play game, and in this situation, most free to play games, these sorts of like systems are going to exist. the idea that a cosmetic shop allowing you to buy just what you need being enough is almost in all cases never going to be enough. It's just not. That's the real. It's not going to be enough. They're going to find ways to sneak these things in here, and that's just how it is. Do I like it personally as a game? No, I don't. However, I also understand that the days of just paying a subscription for an MMO and it surviving, they're long gone. I don't know how many times I've had someone tell me that they don't like a game isn't worth their subscription, like actively. It's just not the case. So all those things being said, I don't get the take on the SG scratch. If you feel this way, by all means, that's your prerogative, and that's totally fine. I'm not saying that you're right or wrong. I'm saying that it does not. I don't understand why we're making this take now with the one that's actually useful for everyone, instead of the one that quite literally was only available to people who paid money. That's my whole take on it. The event sameness stuff. This next three kind of go together: event, LTQ, and the whole weapon situation, like the reuse of the weapon skins and things like that. This is a catch-up event, man. Seasonal events are catch-up events. That's quite literally all they are. It would be cool if they were more interesting. Absolutely. It would be cool if we had more Sonic LTQ. 100%. Absolutely, yes. Those events are awesome. Those LTQs are fantastic. But I need innovation and content that's going to stick around. Our LTQs, quite right now, are flash in the pans. They're here for a week and they're gone, and they're replaced with the next LTQ and the next LTQ. These are vehicles for delivering easy ways of people being able to catch up to the game or just farm resources for the next time. Why I 100% agree, it's boring. It sucks. It needs to exist. These sort of things need to exist. In this format, maybe no. Maybe they put this in something else, right? Like there's another piece of content that's the catch-up thing. But by putting it in an LTQ that a lot of players are going to interact with, players who still need to catch up interact with the players that need to interact with this stuff. So everyone's coming together and it's making it much easier. It's something that Final Fantasy XIV a long time ago figured out, that if you're forcing players that need to do something along with players that are getting an extra benefit out of doing something together, everyone resonates and they're able to get a lot more accomplished. And if we do it this way, everyone wins. That means you can either opt into doing it or you can skip over it if you don't need it. It's a very simple process. Now, I personally think that PSO2 needs to invest in more of the in-between events, in something that's more interesting, like the Sonic LTQ stuff, like other types of events that like really pull people in, so people don't just see all these events are this way. But quite literally, seasonal events are just a way for people to catch up, are just a way for people to get extra resources, and it's a time that people can show off, or they can show off the interesting lobbies. And that's basically it. The LTQ reuse, it's going to happen. They reuse these things every year. But we need more variety mixed in. I don't really mind there being reused LTQs as long as they're swapping out some minis every once in a while. That's completely fine. It's reasonable. This has happened since Phantasy Star Universe. It's going to continue because that's kind of how the game works itself. Again, we just need to have a bit more shaking things up. The weapon reskin and potential reuse. I also don't agree with this take. I don't understand this take. It's an event weapon. The point of the event weapon is to be strong during the event, and then afterwards to be somewhat useful as a stepping stone. We're upset over a weapon that quite literally helps people get into the current content, that has a good potential. Would it be better if it was more interesting? Sure, absolutely. However, if it was more interesting, would it be useful in more parts of the game? Probably not. The reality is they did elemental event weapons and they died. They didn't have, after they stopped being useful, they didn't have any use whatsoever. Like none. And they stopped being used completely. At least these weapons have a reason to exist. Now, sorry, my water bottle. Now they're going to outclass one another each time, which quite literally just brings the prices down. So it's like the old weapon gets outclassed and it's not usable anymore. So we go on to the next one, which is again very cheap. So it doesn't really matter too much. It's just a stepping stone. You get the weapon, you move on to the next thing, you move on to the next thing, you move on to the next thing. It's kind of the whole point of the weapon itself, right? I'm not going to harp it too long. I get that, yeah, it's not very interesting, but I want that level of innovation and interesting and look and interesting and potential on a weapon that we actually going to keep. Our next 9-star, our next 9-star upgrade, our next 10-star. Those are the weapons I want to be cool. Those are the weapons I want to look interesting. And those are the ones I want to have the interesting potentials. Not an event weapon. It's that simple. Next one, I agree with 100%. And this one kind of ties into something I'm going to talk about later, is there's no sneak peek for our October event. Like, seeing something for the October stuff would have been awesome. I would have loved to see, even if it was a 15-second clip of anything at all. I 100% agree that definitely should have been there. However, people actively going into the headline with the mindset of seeing something for October is silly. And the reason for it is because they tell us everything we're going to see in the headline from the start. And if we were going to see something for October in the headline, they would have shown it, or they would have talked about it in the description. So those of you guys who are upset that we didn't see it, silly. However, asking for it, totally valid criticism. Hey, look, it'd be cool if we got to see more of this. And I quite literally tweeted it out at NGS headline. We should see some of these things. That way people can be hype about something. Totally. They talked about the merch situation. My irritation with the merch situation is different than most people's. People talked about like random code situation being stupid or whatever. The merch is only available in like one place in the US, and it's like on the other side of the country for me. Just do an online shop, man. I don't know the first thing about online distributing and how difficult that process is, but holy shit, everyone wants to buy merch. Everybody wants to buy merch. Literally everyone. Just give us an online shop to buy this stuff. People will buy it. They will pay for it, I promise you. I quite literally would end up having to buy 6 goddamn shirts and 4 towels because 2 people in my household love PSO2. Me and my fiance. We both love it. For the love of God, just make an online store. And the whole code situation will no longer matter. Yes, releasing random codes is the whole idea behind the code itself. There's 2 different codes. And releasing the random code, the whole idea behind it is not only just anti-scalping measures, it's to also keep people buying everything. It's so that if all the shirts run out, you get one of the 2 codes or whatever, you can buy a towel and still have a chance to get the code that you're looking for. That's the whole reason that exists in the first place. Do I think it's dumb? Yes. I tie the codes to the individual items and then keep a decent stock of both of them, but that's not how marketing works or how distribution works in most situations. From what I understand, I also didn't go to school for business. So I'm going to trust people that actually did work that stuff out. Code lotteries are JP culture for marketing. It's also partially a JP culture for marketing, yes. But the fact is, it's not just in Japan. It's also here with us. And the idea is that you want to keep people buying everything. If, let's say, for example, the towels or the emote wasn't very popular, and you can only get the code from buying the shirts, and your only reason was you wanted a shirt, but you also wanted the outfit. If you could still get your code by buying a towel and you do like the towel itself, you're more inclined to buy the towel as well, is the reality of the situation. And the last note is, it's kind of random, and this one kind of came up like in my comments about the headline video, and then also like in chat when we were talking about it, was like a class balancing thing. If you're a techter out there that has some numbers that want to show me how bad Tector is, by all means, please DM them to me. Show me. Because every Tector I have played with and every Tector that I have seen have time and time again not only performed extraordinarily well, but have offered damage buffs, defensive buffs, and utility-based buffs in the form of like downs and things like that, all without actively interrupting their gameplay. I know this is a random note to mix in there, but like when we were talking about needing more PAs, people were complaining, or I saw complaints about like, oh, well, Wand only has 2 PAs. I argue Wand has 2 PAs, every tech in the game, as well as compound techs. Now, is Tector as impactful as like, let's say maybe Ranger? Well, I don't have the numbers on how much damage each one of those classes provides overall with their use of utility. That's just the reality of the situation itself. I don't know those numbers. And if someone wants to show me those numbers, I'm down to figure out those numbers. What I do know is every fucking Tector I've played with has been able to put out godly amounts of damage near what we're putting out as other classes, while also buffing the entire group. Huh? I don't get it. I don't understand. I didn't know Waker had compounds. We're talking about Tector, not Waker. Like I don't understand that tech. So this is more of just a call out to tech or to Tectors out there. By all means, if you have some math or some spreadsheet or something that shows me, hey, look, Tector does 40% less damage than every other class in the game, but only provides like 10% damage buff. Sure, I hear you. I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm with you. That's fine. However, to this point, I have not seen that. Maybe it's one that just sucks. I don't know. But all I know is I've seen Tectors quite literally do 4 and 5k DPS against Solus, which 5k is what you need to solo the fucking fight. You need 5.1k to be able to solo the fight. And Tector is pushing out a shit ton of damage. So I don't know where this idea came about that Tector is terrible or Tector is bad. Maybe it's unfun. Maybe Wand isn't great. But I don't understand it. I don't get it. Maybe this didn't belong in this video. I don't know, but it was a part of my list and I wanted to talk about it regardless. Anyway, a lot to talk about. A lot of things, and holy crap. Fashion is a wonderful thing in this game. A lot of things. But all in all, this is why I don't harp and continuously like stay on topics I'm not a huge fan of, because it's so much to talk about all the time. And yes, these discussions are great, but man, not everyone wants to sit here and listen to someone bash a game that they absolutely enjoy. Like, it's just not something anyone wants to do, man. And the whole purpose of this is me just having fun. Imagine playing video games to have fun, guys. If you're not having fun anymore, maybe don't play the video game. That's all I have to say. That doesn't mean anything that you shouldn't want a game to be good. You should, absolutely. Everyone should want their game to be good. But you should also be able to recognize when it's not good for you anymore. It's okay to walk away. 2 of my best friends in Phantasy Star both quit. Both of them didn't like the direction of the game. Didn't like where it was going. They weren't having fun. And guess what? They've never talked about it again. They've just walked away because their time is more important to them. Your time is important too. Maybe start acting like you can use it to be important. I don't know what that sentence is supposed to be. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. I think I'm done as far as the video is concerned. So I'm gonna go back to my stream. Those of you guys who stuck around for the stream, thank you so much. I know it's been, we took quite the detour of a conversation. But feel free to say goodbye to YouTube. And again, I'm well aware where this is going to take me as far as comments go. I'm really not concerned. I wanted to get this off my chest because I really, really, really cannot sit with this sort of stuff for a long time. It blows my mind. I want the game to be good, man, but I want people to be here when it gets good. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for watching all the way to the end if you did. And yeah, have a good time. Take care, friends. Peace out. Oh, I've wanted to get that off my chest for a minute now. Holy fuck, guys. Jesus. I think my breaking point was people DMing skulls.